Hey guys, welcome back. So what we're going to do now is get started on the login function. So go back to our text editor and go back to signup.php, and what we're going to do is start off just by copying this whole if statement here, because we're going to do something fairly similar. So I'm copying all of that from signup.php, so I've copied it, and I'll go back to signin.php and I'll paste that up here between this require once and this function. So I paste it in there, alright, and save that. And we can actually close down this signup.php file now. We don't need that anymore. And let's just close down the index and the config file too. So we just have these two open, all right? So we're going to do something slightly different here. We don't need to do this part with all these, so get rid of all those, all right? And in fact, let's get rid of this line too. So we only have this redirect here. And this redirect can stay exactly the same too. This is actually done. We're going to keep this exactly as it is. So anyway, let's just double check that our submit button is called submit button. So this value here, submit button, let's just make sure our submit button has that name, which it does. You can see here name equals submit button. So great. This code here will be executed when the user presses the submit button. What we need to do is take the username and password from the data that was submitted. So we can say username equals $_post because we're submitting our data with the post method. And then we can just say username, which is the name we have on the text box here. So username. And then we need to do password as well. So make sure it matches these name values right here. So that's username done. Let's copy and paste that on the line below and change it to password. And this is going to be password because that was the name. And then the only thing left to do is set this was successful variable. So what I'm going to do underneath there is just say was successful equals account arrow login, which is a function we haven't created yet, but this will be our login function, and all we're going to do is pass in the username and the password into that. So username, make sure you spell it right, username, and then finally password. So that's it. We're calling our login function, and this will return true or false depending whether they've logged in with correct credentials or not. And then it'll set this variable here, and if it's true, it'll do exactly like it does in the register function. It'll set the session variable and then redirect them to the index page. Now just remember we haven't actually created this account variable yet, so at the top here underneath there, just like we did on the account on the signup.php page, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say account equals new account, like that, and then we need to pass in the connection variable to our database, which of course comes from this config file, and we do actually need to include this account class, and you can see how we did that in the signup.php page. So if I scroll up, you can see we added it this way. We're going to do exactly the same thing. Now what we're going to do is take both of these values here. So because we're going to use the constants, because we're going to output an error message if they signed in unsuccessfully. So let's just copy both of those, the account one and the constants one, and just paste it in there, or just type it out again. You don't have to copy and paste it if you don't want to. But anyway, we're just adding these two, and now that should be good. Now the very last thing to do before we go and actually create this function is to actually sanitize these values. I realize I forgot to sanitize these, so rather than just accessing these directly, what we can do is actually go back to the signup.php page and copy the sanitizing from here. So I'm copying that with the form sanitizer, sanitize form username, and paste that in there. Okay, so we're just calling this sanitize function that we wrote, and we also wrote one for the password value right here. So give from there, copy this sanitize form password call, and then paste that in there. Okay. And you notice I use the same names here for sign up and sign in, but if you have used different names on the sign in page as you have on the sign up page, you need to change these too, but mine are the same. Okay, so username and password here. And that should be it. We're sanitizing this before we send it to the login function now. So like I said, we haven't created this function yet, but we're going to do that next.